I grew up in the rural South, and in a very, what would be considered a typical white Southern middle-class family. But one of the things that I describe when I talk about that is that we before there was ever a mental health diagnosis, we suffered from white picket fence syndrome. So there were lots of secrets behind the white picket fence. My mother had multiple diagnoses over time. She spent time in and out of mental hospitals, as did a number of her sisters. So kind of having that overarching sadness in the home, I think, was part of it. But also I was very ill as a child and in and out of hospitals from about the age of 4 to 7. And on top of that, when you think about what Southern girls in very white Southern middle-class culture, the way we're raised, I didn't quite fit into that box. I was very precocious, I was very outgoing, I was also very curious about many things and about the world, and everybody tried to keep fitting me into that little box, and I didn't fit well. So there was a lot of rebellion at a very early age. I knew that one of the ways I describe it is I always felt like I was an alien, that I didn't belong here, that somehow I was out there looking for my tribe or looking for connection with people and having a real hard time finding it. And I was also very serious. So by the time I was 13 or 14, I started getting in a lot of trouble, and that led, the more trouble I got in, the more I kind of took on some of the depressive qualities that I learned at home, and you know, one thing led to another, and multiple suicide attempts by the time I was in my early 20s. At that point, I knew that if I didn't get my self-help, I was going to hurt someone else. My behaviors were so high risk, and the things that I was doing really put other people at danger. So I made a decision to seek help and was promptly kicked out of the program because I couldn't follow the rules. But what they told me when they asked me to leave was that I would never get better, that I would never recover, and that I was hopeless. And they made me really angry, and so I left there and said, "I'll show you." I started out in 12-step recovery, and that was a first step for me, you know, kind of stopping some of the high-risk behaviors that I was participating in. But one of the things that happened is, you know, I had numerous years of recovery under my belt, but the depression wasn't lifting, that, you know, that darkness, that cloud that I lived under. And even though I never attempted to take my life again, I still lived under this constant voice inside of me that was saying, "You don't deserve to be here, you're not worth anything, you don't, you know, you just constant thoughts of, I wish I could get out of here, I wish I could escape." And I had the opportunity, probably about 6 years into struggling with recovery, to participate in a program that helped me deal with trauma. And that was a game changer for me. And I was able to go back and take stock that it wasn't about what was wrong with me. There was a lot of what happened, and beginning to understand that I did things because it was the only thing I knew to do. You know, when you're addicted to morphine when you're 4 years old, and then you find that other drugs can bring on those same feelings, well, it's real easy to get back into those behaviors. They took away the pain. And the process that I went through and the work that I began doing around trauma and around how that led up to some of the challenges that I experienced really made a difference. That's the work that I do now, to bring that to the forefront of people's minds. When somebody walks in, they're not walking in with schizophrenia tattooed across their head, or bipolar, or, you know, whatever someone gets diagnosed with. They're walking in with a history. And when you if you're not addressing trauma, if you're not if you're not working with people from a trauma-informed perspective, and for me, what that perspective is with kindness, it's with compassion, it's with understanding, it's holding people accountable, but also giving people the hope that they can change, that they can learn new ways of living their life. We all want to feel good, so we go and do things that we think are going to make us feel good. It's kind of, you know, a short-term win for, you know, just a short-term moment of feeling good. So many of us are just living from moment to moment, trying to hang on to that thread of feeling okay. And you look at people who receive services today, over 90%, I would say easily 98% have had significant just adverse childhood experiences. You move into adulthood, the more ACEs or adverse childhood experiences you've had, the more likely you are to have other adverse experiences. So the link between diagnoses, you know, many of the things that got diagnosed for me were actually my responses to the hard things that happened to me as a child.